ladies. Thank you, Pastor. Turn your Bibles to the book of Titus. The book of Titus. I bring greetings from my wife, Lori. And I really always, this is my third time, I think, here at Broveview Heights Baptist. And I'm honored to serve Pastor and his dear wife. And this church is a blessing to me. And I'm, boy, it sounds so old to say I was saved in '69, and from 1970 I was a youth pastor, and now this is 53 years in the ministry, and I'm practically a fossil. But I'm reminded how old I am when I was in the antique store in Toledo yesterday, and I was walking slow, and they put a for sale sign on my back. And they never got one bid, nothing. It's embarrassing, but I'm practically a fossil. And now we have 22 grandchildren and the second great-grandchild on the way. The bad part is I never wanted to be married to a great-grandmother, but I mean, we're here now. But it's a great stage of life. But it's exciting, the future that is just around the corner for you guys. I just thrilled for you. I'm actually a member of this church. I don't tithe here, but then neither do some of you. And so, but I feel like I belong here. I love the good music. I'm a big fan of good music, and I'm not musical myself. I know a little about music. Like, for example, I know why Beethoven killed all of his chickens. Because they kept saying, bok, 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 bok. See, that might not even be a true story. That's about the limit of what I know musically. But this is a big deal, and if you could only come to one service, come tonight. Tonight would be the one to come to. But, you know, think with me for a moment. When you think of the grand plan of an almighty, majestic, omnipotent God, the plan of redemption wasn't a surprise. Oh, man sinned, now what are we going to do about it? No, Jesus was the lamb slain from before the foundation of the world, and God planned to reconcile his banished back to himself. And it's not a surprise. He's not just up there wringing his hands, what am I going to do next? God knows exactly what he's doing, and we rest in that. But when we see in the scriptures, whom shall it send and who will go for us? Then said I, lo, it's written in the volume of the book, here am I, send me. The plan of the Lord Jesus Christ coming to this earth, being born of a virgin, living a sinless life, dying a vicarious substitutionary atonement death, where he, the innocent, takes our sin on him and dies on the cross, cries up to a holy Father, forgive them for they know not what they do. That was all in the plan of God. But while he was here on earth, the Lord Jesus walked by the Sea of Galilee and called 12 disciples. And these guys are handpicked, and so who's going to be the leaders? Why, it's Jesus and the disciples, his 12 apostles that he's called. And then, of course, the Lord's crucified. Judas betrays him. We draw straws and get Matthias. And then as we're marching through in Acts 9, the Apostle Paul gets saved on the road to Damascus. He's sent out of the church at Antioch in Acts 13. He goes up into Asia Minor, starts churches. He says, I'm an apostle. Am not I an apostle? As one born out of due time, have not I seen the Lord Jesus Christ? He had seen the Lord, but this era of picking the leaders, hand-picking, from Jesus to the 12 apostles to the Apostle Paul, but now the apostolic era is drawing to an end. And so now we're launched into After he goes over into Greece, and northern Greece and southern Greece, Corinth and Athens, lo and behold, we're in the fully developed Gentile age, the church age, Paul the apostle to the Gentiles. And I know it sounds like minutia, but you understand now after his missionary journeys, he confirms the churches, says goodbye to the Ephesian elders, goes to Jerusalem to be betrayed, takes the ship, has the storm Euroclydon, goes to Rome, and now he awaits the Mamertine prison and death. But while in Rome on one of his occasions, he's saying to the Timothy and Titus, hey guys, look, the apostolic age is drawing to a close, but we're out here in the fully launched church era, and God was dealing with nations and he used Israel, but now he's using the church in this dispensation, this age, he's using the church. All of that to say, wait a second, we're not going to have an apostle around here anymore. And so you guys are going to have to pick your leaders. And this whole sermon is how to get a decent pastor. But the book of Titus, if you look through Paul's travels, 34 different men traveled with him at one time or another. You read the Acts and the epistles, and while Barnabas is with him and John Mark, all kinds of different guys. But he writes this letter now near the end of his ministry to Titus. And he's kind of, I want to say, kissing goodbye and saying, look, here we are, we built this little ship and we're launching it out on the sea of the future here. And Titus, I want you to know this. And so when we walk into today, the book of Titus, you understand where we are. As much as anything is written to you today, the book of Titus is written to you today. This is not talking about the Jews. This isn't the Old Testament law. This is, hey, here's what the church is supposed to look like, okay? So let's be fair with the scriptures. Stand with me, please, and we're going to read our text. Paul, a servant of God, verse 1 of chapter 1 of Titus. If it helps, it's on page 241 in my Bible, so I'm sure that'll be a help. But watch, Paul, a servant of God and an apostle of Jesus Christ, according to the faith of God's elect and the acknowledging of the truth which is after godliness. Verse 4, to Titus, mine own son after the common faith. Grace, mercy, and peace from God the Father and the Lord Jesus Christ, our Savior. Then I'd like you to read aloud together verse number 5, okay? So we'll read this, Titus 1:5. For this cause left I thee in Crete, that thou shouldest set in order the things that are wanting, and ordain elders in every city, as I had appointed thee. And let's pray. Lord, bless our time in the scriptures. Speak to us. Lord, would you come to church today? We invite you in. Would you be the teacher? By your Holy Spirit, apply these truths to our lives, this ministry. And I pray you'd find us in the center of your very will. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you. You may be seated. Crete, look at a map of the Mediterranean Sea, and boy, you got way over here Spain and Portugal, and over here on the other side you got Israel, and boy, you got two peninsulas sticking down into the sea. One of them is Italy, shaped like a boot, and got Sicily off there. But the Greece peninsula, the Grecian peninsula, at the bottom of there's this huge island. It's like 130 miles long, 150 miles long, and 30 miles wide, and it's a big ribbon right there in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. Paul's traveling with these different guys, and he says to Titus, "For this cause left I thee in Crete." Hey, here's the reason I left you. Now, this is a huge island. Actually, it's a great big rock sticking out of the middle of the water. But on the perimeter at this time, during this time, there are 200 cities along the seacoast all around the perimeter of this island. Some larger, some smaller, some with a good harbor, some not. But there are 200 cities, let alone the people that are living up in the mountain. And Paul says, look again carefully at verse number 5, "For this cause left I thee in Crete, that thou shouldest set in order the things that are wanting, and ordain elders in" what? One town? No, every city. Once in a while, somebody will say, "How do you know missionaries are supposed to go and stay for a lifetime?" Paul and those traveling with him were just short term, 1 year, 2 year. Hey, he left Titus there and gave him 200 cities. Now listen, most guys, if they can get one church started, they're killing a bear. Try doing that in 200 towns. I'm just saying, this is a lifetime commission. This is big stuff. We're talking tall cotton here. And then he says, "I want you to set in order the things that are wanting and ordain elders in every city." And then he goes through, and this is repeated in the book of Timothy too. But he says, here's what the elder is supposed to look like. This is what a good pastor is supposed to look like. And look with me quickly here in verse number 6. "If any be," and here's the qualifications for a pastor, "if any be blameless, the husband of one wife, having faithful children, not accused of riot or unruly, for a bishop must be blameless as a steward of God, not self-willed, not soon angry, not given to wine, no striker, not given to filthy lucre, but a lover of hospitality, a lover of good men, sober, just, holy, temperate, holding fast the faithful word as he hath been taught, that he may be able by sound doctrine both to exhort and to convince the gainsayers. For there are many unruly and vain talkers and deceivers, especially they of the circumcision, whose mouths must be stopped, who subvert whole houses, teaching things which they ought not, for filthy lucre's sake." Listen to me. We don't have time to exegete all this, but if you talk to any pastor and ask him, how do you square with those qualifications? Most of them would say, "Boy, I aspire to be that." But when you say the word blameless, that's a big word. Blameless. Hey, maybe I'll be accused, but I sure want it to be a false accusation. If you say a lover of good men, a lover of hospitality, I want to be that, but there's sometimes I want to be alone. In the Bible, when it goes through, not soon angry, not self-willed, wow, I wished, but all God has to use down here is us humanoids. And we all wished we were better and aspire to be better. But what I want you to notice here is, more than anything else, we do not lower the bar of the expectation. This is the caliber of man. Jesus isn't here to pick your pastor. The Apostle Paul's not running around saying, "I want this guy to go with me and this guy to go with me." No. Now it's, hey, ordain elders in every city, and here's the qualifications. Here's what it's supposed to look like. Now, when you think of Titus going to the Isle of Crete, and there he is on this island, and he goes to the first town, and the task is, get people saved, get them baptized, get them busy, and then teach and disciple and grow them in Christ, and from them ordain elders, get a guy qualified to lead the church. And here's what he's supposed to look like: sound, just, temperate, able to preach the word and teach sound doctrine and exhort and convince the gainsayers, all the false teachers. He's got to be sound in doctrine. He's got to be good in his example. He's got to love the Lord Jesus. And boy, then you get him to pastor and you go to the next town. Now listen, that's a huge task. Any pastor in a town, he puts his arms around a city and prays for them and loves them and wants to see people saved and grow. But the very next verse and following, watch what it says. One of themselves, verse 12, even a prophet of their own said, the Cretians, by the way, those are the people that live on Crete. The Cretians are always liars, evil beasts, slow bellies. I don't even know what slow bellies is, but it does sound like lazy to me. The Cretians are always liars, evil beasts, slow bellies. This witness is true. Wherefore rebuke them sharply that they may be sound in the faith. Don't walk past this. Hey, Titus, here's what you're trying to make, but here's the raw material. Here's what you're starting with. Liars, evil beasts, slow bellies. Here's where they come from. This witness is true. Meet them halfway. Understand. Just lower the bar. Hey, do the best you can. Any warm body, no, that's not what it says. It says, rebuke them sharply that they may be sound in the faith. We're not lowering the bar. We're trying to raise up champions. Hear me, this is a huge, huge task. Would think, wow, what else do we know about the people? Verse 14, not giving heed to Jewish fables and commandments of men that turn from the truth. Well, they had religion. There's cults, there's isms, there's all the will worship and all of the human religions. Verse 15, unto the pure all things are pure, but unto them that are defiled and unbelieving is nothing pure, for even their mind and conscience is defiled. They profess that they know God, but in works to deny him, being abominable and disobedient unto every good work, reprobate. You know what reprobate means? They think good is evil and evil is good. Every good work, reprobate, incapable of discerning right from wrong. The Bible says in John 16, they will put you out of the synagogues. Yea, the time cometh that whosoever killeth you will think that he doeth God's service. Right now, we're not far from that in the United States. We could all do our unfettered freedom if it wasn't for these Bible thumpers running around. We could just have our way. Nancy Pelosi, they said she's trying to get the 10 Commandments off the halls of Congress because it says, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not commit adultery. That's a hostile environment. How do you expect us to operate with conditions like that? Listen. The time comes when it's so backwards that, hey, the bad people are the ones that believe the Bible, and the good people are the transvestites teaching the children in kindergarten. You say, how could he get that upside down? Hey, when I hear people tell me about, did you see what's going on in America? Brother King, they got little cubicles in the public schools in Wisconsin, and there they have the boys' bathroom and the girls' bathroom, and then outside they got these cubicles with sand in them, and all the kids that identify as furries, if they think they're a dog or a cat, they've got a sandbox, and they can go use that for their toity-toity, and the janitors have to clean it up every day. You say, no way. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Children dress like a dog or a cat and go in there to go potty. You say, no way. But my response is always the same. Ooh, maybe you got Cretians around there. Maybe, look, it was a very wicked, vile place that Paul left Titus in Crete. This is the raw material. You can spend your day criticizing and complaining and castigating and maligning. You can spend your day looking down your nose condescendingly, or you can say, from this, we got to win them, wed them, and work them. Get them saved, get them baptized, get them busy, get them bearing fruit so God can purge them, they can bring forth more fruit. We want them to grow till they're conformed to the image of Christ, and that's our job. My wife, when I was pastoring, once in a while a circumstance would come up that was just defying a solution. And I'd be driving home on Sunday afternoon, and my hands would be tight on the steering wheel, and my wife would go, that's why they need a pastor, Randy. It's job security. As long as there's people like that, they'll always need a pastor. Thank God for a supportive wife. Hey, don't tell me, oh, Pastor King, we got people in our church that, and then fill in the blank. I get it. That's what we're doing here. We're trying to get people from wherever we find them to where they ought to be. And Paul says to Titus, verse number 13 at the bottom, wherefore rebuke them sharply, that they may be sound in the faith. Hear me. The answer is not accommodating or turning a blind eye. You just stand for the truth, unapologetically. And then, chapter 2, just look quickly, it says, but speak thou, verse 1, the things which become sound doctrine. Notice it's not, hey, use a little philosophy, try using human understanding, do your best. Nope. A pastor, a church says, look, God started the church. God gave us guidelines for the church. He raises up pastors, men of God. This is what a pastor's supposed to look like, and here's his job. And the first few verses of what he's supposed to do is address the home and family. The most important thing that's going on is the home and family. Once in a while, somebody will say to me, oh, Brother King, why don't you just preach the Bible? Why are you meddling? Preaching the Bible means I'm going to address the home and family. We're going to talk about where you live. Look, anybody could hide in the Bible and be a Bible preacher and say, well, I'm going to show you all the types and archetypes of the tabernacle. I'm going to spend time and we're going to study the 12 tribes, the 12 apostles, the 12 foundations, the 12 walls, and the 12 gates. We're going to spend time and we're going to do Bible numerology, and we're going to study the beauty of 40 days, or we're going to look at 3 days and 3 nights in the Bible. You could spend your whole time and never battle at the battlefront and talk about real things that real people are living. It takes courage to just tell the truth. Now, I'm not talking about building a church on social issues. I'm talking about being biblical. And he says, look, here's how this works, Titus. I left you on Crete. You're going to set in order the things that are wanting. And oh, are they wanting? That's why you're there. That's why you're there. And ordain elders in every city. Well, if they're liars, evil beasts, slow bellies, they profess that they know God, but they deny him. Every good work reprobate. They do abominable things. They think kidnapping's okay. They think murder's okay. They think, listen, somebody's got to stand up and say no. There are moral absolutes. Right is right even if nobody's doing it. Wrong is wrong even if everybody's doing it. There are those things that grieve a holy God. Amen. And so here we have, he goes right through, and we won't take time to every word, but verse 2, that the aged men, chapter 2:2, that aged men be sober, grave, temperate, sound in faith, in charity and patience. Hey, you got a guy who's living in lasciviousness, having sex with everybody that's not his wife, listen, here's where you start, Titus. Talk to the old men and tell them, They got to deny themselves. Just because you experience an emotion does not give you permission to act on it. Amen. Tell them, holy, just, temperate. Hey, battle at the battlefront. Call it the way it is. Don't change the message just because, well, what if he would be a big giver? Listen, you cannot please God if you have the fear of man that brings a snare. He says, look, here's what I want you to speak the things which become sound doctrine. The aged women, verse 3, likewise, that they be in behaviors becometh holiness, not false accusers, not given to much wine, teachers of good things. You say, well, you're not gonna address the gossip sessions, are you? Is that all there is to the story? Oh, I don't know. I already told you more than I heard. Hey, battle at the battlefront. This is where the battle rages. That they may teach the young women. Watch verse 4. To be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, keepers at home, good, obedient to their own husbands, that the word of God be not blessed. I had a woman come to our church when I'm pastoring. Brother King, I'm going to come to this church, and I like the friendly people, and it's beautiful facilities and the great music, but you just got to promise me never use the S word. I said, I don't even know what the S word is. Submission. Don't ever use the S word. Let me see here. It says that they should teach the young women to be obedient to their own husbands. I got a choice. I can either do what this says or I can do what she said. I use the S word once in a while. And I'm saying to you, any man of God, look, I thank Christ, she is my Lord who hath enabled me and he counted me faithful, putting me into the ministry. I have a choice. I am either pleasing men or I'm pleasing God, and he's the one that called me. I have to put my head on a pillow at night, and I'm going to stand before a holy God, and I answer to him, and I won't answer to you. And one of the wonderful things about this, Paul says to Titus, hey, look, you're going to set in order the things that are wanting and start with the home. Well, Pastor, I mean, you got a whole Bible. Why would you harp on that? Listen to me. Every year when I pastored 25 years in a row, I took the month of February and preached on the home. I talked about husbands in the first week and wives the second week and teenagers the third week and little children the fourth week. And if the cat don't like the way it's being pet, then let the cat turn around. I have a responsibility to preach and teach on the home and the roles of mom and dad. We live in a culture that is trying to blur every Bible distinction. Yes, that's right. And how wonderful to just say, hey, I'm not, I know, it's Cretians. But this is where we're going. We will not lower the bar. This is what we're trying to do, is raise people up to the standard, get them from wherever we find them, love them, but help them to grow in Christ. Then, of course, Paul says to Titus, now look, if you're going to be preaching this stuff, people are going to get fighting mad. They say if you preach the Bible, you got to be ready to either pucker or duck. The ones that like it, and duck the ones that are trying to hit you. Got to be ready for either. But here it says, in all things showing thyself a pattern of good works. Somebody has to be living it. If you're trying to say to everybody else, look, here's what this looks like. This is what a Christian walks like. This is what a Christian talks like. This is how the Christian conducts his affairs. Here's how he has his relationships. This is what a Christian's supposed to look like. And notice what it says. In all things showing thyself a pattern of good works. in doctrine showing uncorruptness, gravity, sincerity. Verse 8, sound speech that cannot be condemned, watch, that he that's of the contrary part may be ashamed, having no evil thing to say of you. Look, you get criticized. If you're in leadership in any role, you get criticized. You're the target. And especially people who are convicted of one thing or another, they'll find a way to criticize you. When I pastored in Nino, look, we had the only perfect pastor in the country was at our church. But I had a guy come to me, Pastor King, I'm quitting the church. I said, well, why is that? Because you're just groveling at the feet of the people who are wealthy in the church. And I said to him, boy, I'm not that nefarious. I wished I'd have thought of that. I didn't even think of that. I don't even know how to curry favor with people with money. I don't know what people have for money. What are you talking about? And he pulls out, God honest truth, a piece of paper. And he has kept a record, a ledger, of who I've called on to pray to open Sunday school, to open the morning service. Who have I called on to dismiss the morning service, to open the... He's got a ledger every week for a year of who I had called on to pray. And I'm looking at the list and I'm in sheer disbelief that the guy's got this kind of time on his hands to think this through. And he shoves it under my nose and he says, see this? These are all the wealthy guys. You're just letting them pray and you're not calling on anybody else. I haven't been called on to pray all year long. Now hear me. When you're accused of something, it takes a little bit of humility to say, is this true? And then it takes more humility, even if it's not true, to say, why would they think this is true? Because I don't even want them to think that. Whether it's true or not, I still don't want them to think that. And so I had him come up. It was a weekday, the auditorium was dark. I turned the lights on. We walked up to the pulpit, and I said, you come up here. Now, I said, imagine every single time I have somebody open in prayer or close in prayer, every time, we're standing. We have the opening song, we have the closing song, and we're standing. And you get out your list of names, and you're going to find out that who I call on is tall people. The guys with their heads sticking up, when you're looking at 500 or 600 people. And you're looking out there, the guy with their heads up are the ones that you see from up here. I'm actually prejudiced to tall people. And you're 5'6", and you sit in the back row behind 3 orangutans. What's the chances? I'm never going to call on you unless you sit in the front row. And furthermore, you're unemployed, and so poor you can't pay attention, and everybody in the church is rich compared to you. You can be accused, but let it be a lie. If you're in leadership, it's just, hey, let them be ashamed who falsely accuse you. It comes with the territory, but I'm saying to you folks, the church is a big, big deal to God. And the best thing that ever happened to any family is a good church. And the best thing that ever happened to any church is a good family. We're not competing with each other. We're working together for the glory of God and for the sake of our future and for our children. And of course, would it shock you? We won't take time for the rest of the book, except to just comment right after he talks about the family. Where do you spend the second most time? In the workplace. Exhort servants. Not purloining. Don't steal from work. Give your employer a day's work for a day's pay. Then it says, the grace of God that bringeth salvation hath appeared to all men, teaching us that denying ungodliness and worldly lust, we should live soberly, righteously in this present world. And then he says, looking for Jesus, you teach these people, hey, keep your eyes. You're going to answer to God Almighty someday. It's not a matter of another church rule. It's not a matter of, the pastor might find out what you're doing. Listen, you keep your eye heavenward, and you'll live differently. Live soberly. Hey, you're saying liars, evil beasts, and slow bellies, and what the message is going to be that they should live soberly and godly and righteously in this present world? You're going to teach him that he's purifying unto himself a people zealous of good works? Yeah, that's the message. We're starting with you, but where we're going is here. And we make no apologies. Be ye holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy, is still in that Bible. Amen. We're not, well, how dare you say that? We had a lady visit our church, and I don't know why sometimes it's ladies, but she came to me after church, and she said, Pastor King, the biggest problem around this place is you. I said, what's that? She said, everybody is so welcoming and the beautiful music and everything, but I'm telling you, you say things that just aren't popular. She said, the guy I watch on television never talks like that. And he's got a mansion and an in-ground pool. He's got his own airplane. If you would just learn to trim the message, you could have thousands here. And I told her, I says, look, you need to understand, we are where we are on purpose. We're not apologizing for it. But that doesn't mean we don't have a care and compassion and genuineness to reach people from wherever they're at. I was in a conference, and there was an old line evangelist preaching. If I called his name, you'd know him. And he was in this church, and he says, wow, I love the godly music, and look at all these beautiful families, and look at all the way everybody's got dresses to their ankles, and even the little boys are wearing ties. And he went on and on. And he said, no, you're probably not doing much for God. He says, give me a church that has somebody with a tattoo. Give me a church with somebody that's not dressed appropriately. Hey, you're reaching people. You're going to have all kinds of people sitting in front of you. That's what it comes. But that doesn't mean we change where we're going. It's just that we love them wherever we find them. And we're trying to help them. And they need to see in us their best ally, not some critic. But hey, we're for you. We want God's best for you. It goes on and talks about being a good citizen in chapter 3. It talks about being a good neighbor and maintaining good works. Then it says, look out for heretics. And then he kisses them goodbye. I'm saying all that because it's of note to me when I look at the culture in America today. Hey, I think we are on Crete. I do think it's a huge challenge. We are so countercultural. If we really stand for the Bible, this is abhorrent to the average person in the public today. And they try to paint us as some kind of a freak show. And there is a tendency, and let me tell you, it's happening everywhere I go. Well, let's just accommodate. Let's just compromise. Let's just change a little. But that's not the prescription that was given. Rebuke them sharply, that they may be sound in the faith. Doesn't mean you can't be loving, but you trim the message. Listen, you take any teenager, if he senses hypocrisy in his home, he'll be the first to tell you about it. You take any church member and they sense compromise, they're the first to tell you, those people aren't real serious about the things of God. They don't really tremble at the Bible. They don't really try to be conformed to Christ. No, listen, stand for what's right and love people wherever you find them. We're starting kind of an emphasis on the home and family, and I'll be preaching tonight on the home. But I told the pastor, my burden is to let you see what an ally the church is to your home. If the dad's the head of his home, and dad has got some stinking thinking, maybe he's arrogant or prideful, maybe he's demeaning to his wife or children, maybe he needs a rebuke, he can't get that rebuke from his children. He can't get that rebuke from his wife, but he can get it from a Bible-believing pastor. We're meant to help each other. We're meant, when the church is operating, in the multitude of counselors, there's safety and there's wisdom, and God raises up people to provide guidance. And I just hate that the devil has kind of set two God-given institutions against each other instead of being allies for each other. And so I'm saying to you, listen, please, raise your children to love the church and to love the fellowship and to love the preaching and to love the Bible and to be mighty thankful for the church that stands unapologetically. Here's where we're going. This is our marching orders. The Lord's the one we're trying to please. Pray as we minister that we can do it with the right heart, but with sound doctrine. To me, when a pastor says, we're going to focus on the home as a big part of our ministry. Yes, there's missions. Yes, there's evangelism. Yes, there's a need to stand against the evils of the culture. But first and foremost, we are for the home. That's what we're doing here. That's the first thing. That's the first thing Paul told Titus to do. That's what good preachers look like.